Hello, we're the Cryptid Code. We're your hosts, Harmon,
Kenzie,
and JP.
And we like to talk about cryptids and aliens and generally anything spooky.
and we cuss a lot.
Indeed. Now, it's my turn to present the cryptid this week, and I got a bit of a doozy for you. Have any of you heard of the Kentucky Goblins?
Yes.
All right.
I have
Only
not.
because you told me about it.
Just giving the audience a little peek behind the curtain there. Thank you, Jake. So, you all know how I said I was kind of afraid to bring up the A word last time I did a cryptid?
As in,
Aliens?
I was gonna say, I don't know what the fuck I thought.
Aliens.
I think I was like animals.
Avocado? Well, I am labeled as the conspiracy theorist, so I thought it was about time I earned that and covered some aliens. So, the first sighting of these creatures, known as the Kentucky Goblins, was in August 21st, 1955. And it happened on the Sutton family farm outside of Hopkinsville, Kentucky.
Sutton Family Farm?
Sutton.
Oh, Sutton!
Yeah, Sutton.
Okay.
Why does it sound familiar? You should?
Do you know a
my-
Sutton family that owns a farm?
No.
Okay, then I can't tell you.
Okay.
Alright.
At the house at the time was a man named Lucky Sutton. Lucky was his nickname. His grandmother, Glennie Lankford,
Fuck are
and
these names?
their family friend, Billy Ray Tyler. Along with both of their wives.
These names are great.
So there was roughly about 5 adults and 7 children in the house at this time.
Big house.
So Billy was out exploring the woods. He was getting water from a well when he claimed to have seen a silver object shooting across the sky. This was around 7 p.m.
Okay, Billy's an adult, right?
Yes.
He's not much. Okay.
He is a man. He is
Double
married.
checking. Yeah.
He described it as, quote, real bright with an exhaust all the colors of the rainbow.
Oh, that's actually really cool.
Which, I guess it could be either alien stuff, which is what I lean towards, or it could be a comet. Because they do create colors, right? From the debris coming off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I assume by rainbow he doesn't mean like actual rainbow, and more like a prism.
Like a number of colors.
Yeah, where light shines through water or something. Yeah.
Yeah. He supposedly ran back to the Sutton household and told them what he saw, but they all thought he was messing with them, or he just simply saw a shooting star.
Yeah, I think my first guess would have been shooting star too.
Yeah. Or he just hit his head a little hard.
He saw stars.
These are some. I'm just saying. These are some weird names. I'm not. He might be on something.
He did ask Lucky to come back with him to the well, and while they were walking through the woods, they spotted a dull glow approaching them, moving through the woods. And as it got closer, they realized it was a creature floating towards them. It wasn't just light. The creature was described as around 2.5 to 3.5 feet tall, bald. Its head is shaped like a reverse teardrop, where it's round and gets narrow at the top,
What the fuck?
with long floppy ears that end in points.
It actually kind of sounds a little cute, not gonna lie.
Yeah, you want to adopt one?
I would have pet it. I think it'd be cute.
With long arms that nearly hung down to the ground.
That's a little creepy.
Yeah, and large black eyes.
That's okay.
So, understandably, they ran inside. They ran back into
Makes
their house.
sense.
Yeah, some creepy looking thing floating at you that's glowing. I too would run.
If I saw a little mongoloid just glowing towards me in the forest, I'd be like, no.
But the creatures actually pursued them. There was multiple of them, and they just kind of wandered around the house, peering in through windows, and it seemed like they were trying to get in. They would tap at the glass or kind of rip at the screen door.
You know what they should have done? Let them in.
Yeah, or there's come on in, meet the family.
Offer them some milk.
This is Lucky and Grandma Gibbledygook. whatever it was.
So Lucky responded by grabbing his shotgun while Billy got his .22 rifle, and they fucking opened fire on these things.
Okay. I feel like if you learned anything from any alien movies, it's don't shoot first, because if they're friendly, they're not going to be friendly anymore.
Well, The first creature they shot at was apparently pressing its face against the door, and when they shot it, it blew a hole through the door, but the creature is gone.
Like, poof?
Yeah, disappeared is their exact words. Just disappeared. They went out to see if it was dead, and when they went out into the porch, one of the creatures was on the porch roof and tried to grab one of them.
Yeah, because you just shot at its friend.
Or you shot at it. You know?
And it's probably sitting there like, huh, fuck you then. I just wanted to come in.
Now, they responded to its hand trying to grab them by shooting through the roof. Supposedly, the creature jumped off the roof, landed on one of the nearby trees, where they shot it again, and it then did a backflip off the branch and landed unharmed onto the ground.
Damn.
They got acrobats.
That's pretty impressive. Like,
yeah.
Parkour. Like, goddamn.
It then retreated into the woods, but the creatures would repeatedly attack the house and be fended off for about close to 4 hours.
Can we talk about how they really weren't attacking the house until they shot them?
It was almost like you gave a girl like an aquarium and you like tap on the glass. Like as a kid.
You think the aliens were on a field trip? They just opened fire on an elementary school?
It doesn't seem like they were really trying to get in. Like one was scratching at the door, I guess, a little bit.
And they were peering in. They weren't making any moves to like really bug them. It was more like they were curious. And then they shot them and now they want blood. Like,
well, in one of the reports, one of them was trying to get into the kids' room. So that was like the big reason they were freaking out. They were trying to get through the window into where the children were.
Maybe they thought it was
Move the kids.
Maybe they thought it was one of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say if these were like tiny kids, then
they're like, oh, another floating tiny being.
Yeah.
Now, at 11 o'clock at night, they decided that they couldn't hold out much longer, so the entire family got into 2 different cars and drove to the Hopkinsville Police Department. And it actually was met with a sizable police response. They had 4 city police officers, Chief Russell Greenwell, T.C. Gross, Doris Francis, Gray Salter were the 4 police from the city. 2 state troopers, Officer Ferguson Jr. and Officer Riley, as well as a deputy sheriff named George Batts, and 4 MPs from a nearby military base.
Damn!
All drove up to this house to see what was going on. They didn't think there were aliens. They thought there was like a gunfight between 2 families.
Why did they bring so many people? I mean, MPs,
It's just because the base was so close.
That's just still, that's a lot.
But there's a theory about that. You can't see it, but I'm winking. Now, they found the house deserted. Apparently the family refused to go back, understandably, and they wouldn't return until the police checked it out. So the police found no footprints. They did find bullet holes matching the accounts given by the people, so there really was gunfire.
But they were by the people who lived there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they spent a full 4 boxes of .22 ammo. That's how much they fired over the 4 hours this happened. There was no real incidents except for one. An MP stepped on a cat while he was looking around, and the cat screeched, and apparently it flipped everyone out because they thought they were being attacked. And there was just pandemonium for a few seconds before they realized what happened. But they spent 2 hours there looking around.
They found absolutely nothing.
From the looks of it, they did return the next day to find the house abandoned again because the family claimed that at 3:30 a.m. the creatures came back and they had to flee their house.
Weird.
I have a quote from the Kentucky New Era newspaper. Quote, "All officials appear to agree that there is no drinking involved." That'll be important later. Lankford, the grandmother, who actually had a very strict rule against drinking in the house. So none of them were intoxicated during the time of this, and the police backed that up.
Okay.
I bring this up because of the explanations we'll get into later. Now, this isn't the first time weird stuff happened in Hopkinsville. A Sergeant Dudas from the city police.
Sergeant Deadass?
Dudas. It's spelled D-U-D-A-S.
He's Sergeant Deadass to me.
Claimed that he had personally seen 3 UFOs over the summer the year before.
Okay.
So there's kind of a precedence.
What state is it?
Kentucky.
Okay.
Hence the name.
Oh, Kentucky Goblins.
Kentucky Goblins.
Yes. I'm on it.
All right, I'm sorry. Just real quick. We're talking about aliens, low-key. Why the fuck are they called goblins?
Because
they kind of look like goblins. Yeah.
With the pointy ears and they're small, with the big eyes.
Yeah. You ever
They
seen
look like goblins.
I don't know. Have I seen? Have I ever seen a
Have
goblin?
you ever seen Lord of the Rings?
Have you ever played a fantasy game of any kind? Because I guarantee you have seen a goblin. Now, this...
She better look up a goblin.
I gotta make sure.
So this case was actually brought to the attention of Project Blue Book, which is actually the Air Force's initiative to research UFOs. But they didn't feel like it was worth investigating, so they didn't really launch any official capacity into that.
Hold on, real quick. This is what I'm going to imagine.
I have drawings from the witnesses if you want to see them.
Oh shit, do you?
I'll put them on the Twitter later if y'all want.
Sure.
Do it.
And we're also, spoilers, going to get some photography later.
Oh, pictures. Yeah. My belief just went up a little bit.
Yeah, here you can see a model of what they're described to look as.
That is a gremlin.
Yeah, like I said, I'll put this on the Twitter.
You ever seen gremlins?
Yeah.
It looks like a buff gremlin.
Yeah, you're not supposed to feed them after midnight.
Oh, okay.
I'm a ham.
You can't get them wet either, right?
That sounds so dirty.
I
know what it's from.
I
know what it's from, but it sounds dirty.
But they multiply.
Oh, you can?
You can get them wet.
Ulu.
Stop! Now that I know you said that unironically.
That is going to be on the internet for all to see forever.
You're going to have to cut the unironically part out. No one will get it. Okay. So in the aftermath, the house was actually regularly visited by ufologists, people who wanted to learn more about aliens, to the point where the family actually had to put up a no trespassing sign.
Well, people just wander on? And
Yeah.
be like, hey, we're trying to look at your house.
Where's the aliens? Now, after that, they still kept coming, despite the no trespassing sign. So, the family decided to just charge admission. Which immediately got them accused of being frauds, who faked it for the money. But they're like, we didn't want these people here anyway. And...
Yeah, because, like, in the grand scheme of things, like, if you're going to be having, like, a situation that you have no control over, like, might as well get something out of it.
Yeah.
Like, if these
Might as
people
well
are...
benefit.
Yeah, if they're ignoring the no trespassing signs, if they're not even asking for permission to be on said property, then fuck it. Yeah, I would
might
do
as
the
well
same
profit.
thing. Yeah, because they're going to show up either way. Like, what else are you going to do about it?
Yeah, this family really suffered for what they saw. They were accused of being fraudsters looking for money. They're just kind of ridiculed as dumb hillbillies that were probably drunk and just saw something stupid. Which brings me to the explanation given by Joe Nickel, a respected skeptic who typically writes about cases like these and tries to explain them away. He wrote, quote, "It is plausible, if not likely, that the, quote, aliens were great horned owls, and there's evidence that the eyewitnesses may have been intoxicated during the alien attack." Now, I'm just going to say, I feel kind of insulted that he's just ignoring these people, writing them off like that. Because, like I said, the police testified that they weren't intoxicated. But they're just assuming, oh, they're Appalachians, of course they were just drunk. And
But I like, my point would be, like, the police literally, like, advocated that they were not under the influence of anything. Why isn't anyone, like, listening to that? Like, they're insulting this family.
Now, he believed it was the great horned owls, which were native to the area, and that's a running theme with Joe Nickel, is that he typically blames things on owls. He did the same thing with Mothman. Yeah, he did the same thing with, I think, Mothman and the Flatwoods Monster.
I would like to make a point and say that these creatures that he's saying are owls are, like, always depicted to be huge.
I also don't think... Well, I mean, owls can get pretty big. They can do this. They're birds of prey.
my point is, no owl is going to stay there for 4 hours of being shot at.
They also don't just float or glow.
And it's not like they travel in such large groups and try to, like, enter people's home and have hands. Like,
yeah. Well, the explanation is that they were mating, and since it was mating season, they were being especially aggressive. But like I said, most animals aren't going to stick around for 4 hours of being shot at.
No, loud noises, they'll go away.
Yeah.
Now, there are some alternate explanations. One of them is, have you ever heard of foxfire?
No.
It's a kind of fungus that's known to grow in Appalachia that glows at night. So they think that might have been what they saw, at least at first.
Oh, this is the same thing that caused the bacteria that made soldiers in the Civil War glow?
Yeah, and the wisps in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's some people think the glow they saw was that. Some people also believe that the silver flying object that Billy saw was simply a comet, meteor, or a shooting star. Makes sense. It kind of checks out. But the third theory is my favorite. I even put in my little notes. It's my personal favorite. The theory posits that the silver object he saw was not a comet, but it wasn't a UFO. It was a NASA spacecraft crashing. And the creatures that they saw were test chimps in astronaut suits as part of a experimental test flight. And if it's not aliens, I kind of hope it's this.
Honestly?
That's strangely possible.
I know, I was gonna say, that's actually a pretty fucking cool theory.
Yeah, and like the weird shapes is just because they're in astronaut outfits.
Yeah.
So that is weirdly possible.
Because you've seen, I've seen pictures of like chimps and astronaut suits and stuff, and they look weird as shit. And I mean, it also explains the size. Like maybe not necessarily like the floating aspect, but like
very acrobatic.
Yeah, like
and even the arms, because it kind of matches the proportions.
Have long arms,
yeah, and like here's the thing too, and I wouldn't put it past like very stressed chimps like attacking things, because I mean there's videos of them in zoos like punching the shit out of different things, and it also explains how that one went from like the balcony roof, not balcony roof, like the porch roof to the tree,
and then did the effortless backflip.
Yeah. I don't know if I buy that, because that's
it's so stupid.
It's so weird,
great.
but at the same time, it's so possible. What year is this again?
1965, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Let me just double check.
Is that the same year as the Twyo?
Oh my god. Oh, 1955.
Oh, okay.
So he has you beat by a bit. Now, there wasn't much pulp culture to this creature. Except for there are some arguments that this is where we get the term little green men and the common idea of what an alien looks like, being short, gray, big black eyes.
Okay.
That's actually really cool.
That's pretty, yeah.
Now, that's just the first sighting, but there's only ever actually been two, and the second one technically isn't even a sighting, but I'll get to it. So they were not seen again until 2012.
Holy shit!
The end of the world.
No wonder they showed back up.
So the story begins with an online paranormal website called Week in Weird, where they report on 14 subjects, aliens, ghosts, things like that. And a writer with them known as Greg Newkirk. He was contacted on April 22nd by a man named David Christie. And I'm about to read his email to you all. Hello, my name is David. I received your contact information from a mutual acquaintance who assures me that you are well equipped to investigate peculiar problems. Furthermore, I believe you may have interest in these events beyond any compensation that I am prepared to deliver in order to have these issues sorted. For the past 6 months, I have been living in a rural home located on the border of West Virginia and Kentucky, where my family is nightly assaulted by creatures that I have come to believe are of an extraterrestrial origin. These beings appear to be the size and stature of a small child, devoid of any facial features save for large, oily eyes and lipless mouths. They frighten my children by peering through the bedroom windows, chirping at one another. They actively attempt to enter my home in the middle of the night. Last month, they took my dog. The police refused to provide any further assistance, attributing the problems to wild animals and forwarding my complaints to the State Game Commission. I believe they are coming from an abandoned mine located on the edge of my property. Though I am armed, I am afraid that I'm far too frightened to enter the mine by my lonesome, and cannot convince any sympathetic friends to accompany me, though I cannot blame them. I'm convinced that the only answer is to collapse the mine. I believe this is where we can be mutually beneficial to one another. If you are prepared to assist me in this matter, I can offer you permission to record and document these events under the condition of anonymity. I guarantee you evidence of these creatures, which I assure you are not, quote, wild animals. Please respond ASAP. Thank you. Now, Greg Newkirk had no real experience with aliens. He was part of a ghost hunting organization when he was younger, but he didn't have any experience with investigating aliens. So he wrote back to David telling him, sorry, I don't really have any real special knowledge towards extraterrestrials or how to blow up mines, so you might want to go to someone else instead. And he actually received a second email. Give me a second.
Still by the same guy?
Yeah, he kind of assumed the first email was a joke until he got a second one. Thank you for the prompt response. I do not blame you for being skeptical of my story. I appreciate you keeping an open mind about my situation, and I am more than happy to provide you with as much information as I am able. I was given your contact information through a man by the name of theorist. Take note of that, that's important. When these disturbances first began, I was only inclined to confide in a personal friend who I knew had fringe interests. He offered to share my concerns with a man that dealt with somewhat similar experiences in previous years. I accepted his offer. Within a week, I was informed that this gentleman had long since retired from pursuits of this kind, but was willing to provide me with contacts who may be willing to help. This is how I came to contact you. I do not have any answer as to why, other than a referral and a recommendation from a gentleman I do not know personally. I was under the impression that you would be able to answer that question. I am located in Peake County, just outside the town of Heller, Kentucky. Heller is located roughly 30 to 60 minutes from the borders of Virginia and West Virginia, respectively. Most of Pike County is made up of small towns and rural communities. It is not uncommon to go days without seeing my closest neighbors. I moved to this area for peace and quiet. I have received neither. I have lived here in this area for just under 7 months, and at a time the majority of the harassment has occurred within the past 3. I did not become aware of any strangeness until early December, although that is only when I began to keep a record of these events. At first, it was merely strange tracks in the snow around my home. I had initially imagined that they were from some kind of animal, though it closer resembled a human footprint minus the heel. At that time, I was under the impression it was simply a single creature. It wasn't until weeks later that I began to suspect that I was dealing with a number of what I thought were individuals hazing me upon my arrival to the area. At this point, I was incapable of keeping my dogs outdoors overnight. Any attempt to leave her leash would result in her barking herself hoarse until she was allowed back indoors. In the weeks leading up to this particular evening, I had awoken to find my shed doors opened on several occasions, many of my children's toys missing or moved, and my yard in general disarray. I had already given a report to the police, who were making it increasingly clear that they were not interested in my case, barring physical harm or large-scale theft. The second week of January, I'm having breakfast with my family when my 5-year-old daughter begins talking about the kids without hair. When my wife inquired about these kids, she informed us that she had spent the previous night watching them play out in the yard. As you can imagine, this was of some concern. I asked my daughter what these kids looked like. She told me that they were bald like Grandpa and weren't wearing any clothes. The very same day, I found the wreath that hangs inside our rear porch stuffed into our mailbox. I purchased and installed motion-activated floodlights the following day, and for a time the problem ceased. It wasn't until the end of February that our daughter informed us that the bald kids had returned. I was awoken to the sound of my daughter screaming, and rushed to her bedroom, only to meet her halfway down the hall. When my wife and I were finally able to calm her down enough to speak, she told us that the kids were trying to peer into her window, but they couldn't reach, and instead had taken to tapping on it. She hasn't slept in her own bedroom since. It was that morning that I phoned the police for the second time, and they responded by finally sending a trooper to our residence. I informed him of the general regular mischief, how I was now unable to let my dogs outdoors after dusk, and of the bald kids. When we found the ground disturbed just under my daughter's bedroom window, the officer informed me, very matter-of-factly, that we were dealing with an animal, and I would be better off contacting the Game Commission than waste their resources any further. So a very different police response from the original, or they sent like half an army out there.
Yeah.
He goes on to write, almost every day for the following week, I would find some evidence that something or someone had been on my property the previous night. Smudges on the windows were not uncommon. Stones from the walkway were dragged into the other side of the lawn. And I found tears in my screen door.
Oh, shit.
On Wednesday, the 7th of March, I finally witnessed the kids without hair for myself. The dog woke me up around 1:30 a.m., scratching at the back door and whimpering to be let out. I noticed that the motion floodlight was on, and I went to the kitchen window to check that the shed doors were still closed, when I realized that I could see the shadow of an individual cast across my yard. From the angle I was positioned at the window, I could actually not see the source of the shadow or the floodlights. The dog was pacing around the back of the door, and I could hear someone rifling through a box on the porch. Filled with more anger than common sense, the only reaction I could muster was to bang loudly on the window and yell, at which point I heard the screen door on the porch swing open and slam against the door. I heard what I could only describe as chirping. It sounded much like a skunk, if more guttural. I then realized there were more than 2 people on my property, and the shadow, if it had been reacting as if it didn't know which way to run, was quickly joined by another. For a moment I watched as the shadows chirped at one another, when I noticed a figure at the corner of my eye. Standing in the flower bed just to the bottom left of my window was a small humanoid figure with sickly pale skin, completely hairless, standing roughly 4 feet. It was looking in the direction of the shadows, and had clearly come from around the left side of the house, opposite the porch, and had not noticed me as far as I could tell. Its face was devoid of features, save for large, round eyes, very reminiscent in shape and color of a bird's eyes. It had no nose to speak of, and only a small slit for a mouth. It didn't appear to move its mouth as it chirped, sounding more as if the noises originated from its throat. It was most certainly not a wild animal, and even more certainly not a child. I was too terrified to move, and watched as the creature hopped to the others, and together they scrambled into the woods on the right side of my property. It was clear that there was at least 5 in the group. I have not mentioned this particular incident to my wife, and the only other person of whom I have spoken to about these creatures are yourself and the close friend who introduced me to our mutual friend, Mr. Wrist. I would prefer to keep things that way, and to approach this problem as discreetly as possible. Since that evening, my dog has gone missing from the porch, yet to return, and I can only imagine that his disappearance has to do with these creatures. I have gone looking for him during the daylight hours, only to find many of my missing belongings scattered at the entrance of an abandoned mine shaft at the far edge of my property. I don't dare go inside. My friend has convinced me that my experience is similar to that of other visitation experiences, providing me with material and references that back up his claims. I am aware of the outlandish nature of what I have told you, but I am afraid that I have no other explanation for what I have seen, at least at this time. I can see no other option than to seal the entrance to the mine. I cannot achieve this on my own, and I am too frightened to try. I don't dare share this information with others for fear of ruining my career and the reputation of my family. I am prepared to compensate your travel expenses and offer you unrestricted access with whatever recording equipment that you desire, but only on the condition of complete anonymity. Beyond that, I have no other desire than to be rid of this problem. Please inform me of what you would like photographs of and where to send them. Thank you again. So that's the end of the second email. Thoughts so far?
I think my opinion of this specific person is like pretty high. I think a high regard to the information that he's saying, mostly because he's explaining it and talking about it in such a way, and it just seems very truthful and educated. Like, he's not going on this like wild tangent and telling this crazy story and like, you know, skipping details or like, you know,
making stuff up as he goes. This sounds like it's like a legitimate experience that is like burned into his memory.
Very methodically recorded.
Yeah. like he didn't. Yeah, I and I think that's why I do have such a high opinion of like this specific one in comparison to the first one, because this one just seems like, I guess, more so believable.
Now, this story is about to get crazier. Jake, any thoughts so far?
This dude definitely has some kind of problem. The one issue I see is the fact that it's so detailed. Because there is a plot line where things become so detailed, it's almost like, how could one human remember that? Well, he does mention that he's recording things.
So I feel like he saw it and immediately wrote it down.
Yeah, it's I'm not like throwing out his experience, but it is like at the point where it is almost too detailed the way he's writing it.
Yeah. Well, but I also think initially it wasn't super detailed because it was like sporadic events and he was contacting the police and then just letting it go.
Yeah.
But it was when it was like 100% the police aren't going to do anything, he was finally like, all right, fine, you know, I'll take it upon myself. And that's when it got super detailed, because I think at this point he's just trying to get someone to believe him.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll be a scientist about this.
Yeah.
So, Greg starts doing some research. Now, David said that the man who recommended him to Greg was called Terry Rist. Terry first name, Rist last name.
Like terrorist?
Possibly. But here's the thing. Greg didn't know anyone by that name. Turns out, Terry Rist was a real person, but not a real name. Terry Rist was a pseudonym used by a supposed ex-military witness in 2 books by a man named Alan Greenfield. The books are called The Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts, spelled UFO Nauts, kind of like astronauts, UFO, crammed together, and The Secret Rituals of the Men in Black. Now, Alan Greenfield is a big figure in the UFO community, but he's also kind of crazy. He believed that Aleister Crowley invented rituals that will allow you to contact aliens.
Interesting.
And in his books, he interviewed a man who went under the fake name Terry Rist, who claimed to be a veteran from Vietnam, and that he and a number of other veterans were recruited into a paramilitary unit to hunt aliens underground.
Damn, okay. That's actually pretty wild.
They were tasked with going into underground alien bases and destroying them. And they're scattered all around the U.S. via cave systems and caverns. And that's actually a pretty common theory in the UFO community. A similar thing was reported in Doce Base, but I don't have the time to get into that right now.
Does this go along with like Hollow Earth theory and stuff?
No, they just believe they're using caves.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I have a quote from one of Terry Rist's interviews, but do y'all want to hear it?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, just really quick. Let's, I just need to organize my thoughts a little bit. So David is the one that is having this experience.
Yes.
And then...
David Christie.
Okay, and who's the guy that he's talking to?
Greg Newkirk.
Okay. So David was, told to talk to Greg, even though Greg doesn't know shit.
About Terry Rist. Yes.
Yeah. Terry Rist was like, hey, David, go talk to this guy. And Greg's like, I don't know Terry. I don't know why he would tell you to come to me, because I can tell you straight up, I know nothing about anything that has to do with your problem.
Yeah. So it's very likely that Terry Rist is a fake name. So either it's the same person from the Alan Greenfield books, or it's someone who's very well versed in UFO lore, who picked that up as his new fake name.
Okay.
It's going to get weirder. Alright, so in one of the interviews, this is from Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts, Terrorist was quoted as saying, he went on a mission that ended up slaughtering his entire unit down to 3 people. And even then, years later, one of them died of leukemia, and he was only 24 years old. So he thinks that there may have been, like, something deeper to that, radiation. He also claimed to personally kill a few aliens that vaguely matched the description of the Kentucky Goblins. Quote, only 3 of us ever made it back to the surface. One of them died a year later or so, of leukemia, I think. He was only 24 to 25, so maybe there's a connection. Oh, and he also claimed to have regularly have contact with a rather famous alien known as Indrid Cold, also known as the Grinning Man. This story goes deep. Right. The third email goes as such. My apologies for the time it has taken me to reply to your previous email. The situation at my home has become unbearable, and we chose to stay with my wife's family out of the state until an appropriate solution can be reached. I am at my wit's end. This afternoon, my brother-in-law and I traveled back to the house for the first time in over a month, as I needed to check on the security of my property and gather some belongings. The house seems relatively untouched, leading me to believe that the creature's motives were driven by the presence of my family. As you requested, I brought a camera back to the property for the purpose of photographic evidence. While my home was free of tampering, I was able to find a trail of prints that matched the size and shape of those previously left by the creatures on my property. The prints lead into the woods behind my home, following a stream that runs near the mine. My brother-in-law, an avid sportsman, cannot identify the tracks despite his skepticism. Perhaps you know of someone better suited to identify these prints. I'll be spending the next 2 nights in my home and will send more images should the opportunity present itself. And here are the photos that he sent. So, I'll give a description of the Kentucky Goblins' feet. We got feet pics, y'all. They're described as having circular feet with suction cups on them. So it will be a round shape and then the toes. Feel free to pass it over to Kinsey when you're done. I'll also post these to the Twitter, so don't worry, audience. You will get to see these. I'll actually just link the article to our Twitter.
Okay.
Oh, those are weird.
Yeah.
Those are very weird. Here you go.
Yeah. And not long after, he received a final email from David.
And this is the last one?
Yep. The creatures came out of the woods late last evening. I have enclosed photographs I have taken to the best of my ability given the situation. I have also enclosed photographs of the creature's footprints alongside a measuring stick. My brother-in-law is not as skeptical as he was when we arrived, and we will be leaving before dark this evening. I look forward to hearing back from you. And feel free to scroll for these photos. It's a few more prints. And one of the alien itself, supposedly.
Oh, these ones are hard to see. Oh, is it? Scroll down?
Yep.
What the hell? Oh, god damn it. That's such a bad picture. It looks like it has a motorcycle helmet on. What the fuck?
Yeah, doesn't it? People think those might be the eyes.
But it had 2 sets.
I don't know, man.
Weird. I mean, there's no reason you can't have 2 sets of eyes.
Or people think they might be wearing armor or some kind of like protection, like a exosuit or something. So, yeah, the story got wild in the last few minutes, didn't it?
Yeah.
Thoughts, Kinsey?
This is wild. What the fuck are these?
Those are supposed to be the Kentucky Goblins.
That's fucking weird.
So, Newkirk did some investigation, and he actually found a map of Heller, Kentucky. And there's actually dozens of abandoned mines in Heller. It used to be a mining town, so it makes sense.
Uh-huh.
He also managed to contact the police, and they couldn't give Christie's exact location, David's exact location, or the report itself, but they could confirm that they did receive calls of the nature described.
Okay.
So, unless Newkirk is lying, he does have proof that David saw something and contacted the police.
But you can easily get that checked as well, like going to the police and seeing files reported because it's like public information. So I mean, like I seriously doubt he's gonna lie about that at this point if he found it, because anybody can do that.
Well, this is where the story really gets nuts.
Oh God!
This is just like a roller coaster that never stops. That never goes down.
It never goes down. It just is like ongoing.
Because he received another email.
Oh.
Not from David, but from Terry.
From terrorist.
A year after the last email from David. He never heard from David again. He received an email from Terry Riss on February 4th, 2013, reading simply, "Why did you stop when you were so close? I have something for you. 1 week." But this is very oddly written. There's no capitalization, and there's random spaces. Like, week is WEE space K. 1 week later, he received another email. Heller was just a symptom. The ink and black are isolated still. And third order MIA. Bear in mind, for every door closed, a window must be opened. The door is closed. The window is open. Use the numbers. Attached to this was a photo of a piece of paper with 16 numbers. Now, I feel like I need to explain some stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please, like, what the fuck?
Now, this shocked Newkirk, because while he did publish an article about his emails with David, he never said what town David was in. But Terry knew it was in Heller, Kentucky, meaning that he has some inside knowledge of this case. Now, I had to dig through a lot of lore in the UFO world to get through this. But the best I can gather is the ink and the black are either a reference to Indrid Cold again, the grinning man, who was featured heavily in the Mothman prophecies, or it's a reference to an anonymous letter that John Keel, the author of the Mothman prophecies, received. It was a letter from the anonymous international bankers who threatened him into keeping quiet about UFOs, saying that they would pay him a visit if he didn't stop writing about them. But no one knows if the international bankers are a real thing or simply someone pulling a prank on them.
Yeah.
But third order is interesting because, let me pull up my notes. The third order, according to Terry Riss and the books, is a secret council of humans and post-humans, which is supposed to be like half man, half aliens.
Yeah.
And they had the job of representing Earth on a galactic senate to the other planets. They are basically our ambassadors to other worlds. And MIA means, of course, missing in action. So if there is a third order, if there are people who are supposed to be watching out for Earth, they're gone. And I can't make heads or tails of the windows and doors quote. But the numbers, they did find out what that was for.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I feel like that was the most cryptic part of it. I was like, what the fuck are these numbers?
They're coordinates.
Of what? Ooh!
Give me a second. They led to Brown Mountain in North Carolina. And this made Newkirk freak out. Because he had visited that exact spot 5 months earlier. He didn't publish an article about it. It was secret. But now he's having an anonymous person send emails about it. The reason he was in Brown Mountain is because it had a history of UFO reports.
Okay.
Native American legends say they would see lights above the sky. And Give me a second. And when he went there, he was looking at a cave system that supposedly had strange creatures sighted in it. When he got there, he found the entrance sealed. The entrance to the cave was covered with a giant rock that didn't match any of the rock around it.
So it was put there.
Yeah.
Did he go back after he got the coordinates?
I don't believe so.
I feel like you should have at that point, just to see, like, why.
I don't know, man.
I don't know if I would.
I don't know if I would either.
Now...
But it's like a big mystery. Like, you're having an anonymous person basically, like, knowing where you were and, like, what you've been doing and that you haven't been in contact with David in, like, a year. And, like, I just feel like, especially in this whole, alien world thing, it would make sense to go back and try to figure out, like, why they would send you those coordinates.
I don't know, I'd be terrified.
Now,
We'll be probed.
around this point, Newkirk met with an author who is actually the daughter of Lucky Sutton from the original sighting. She wrote a book called Alien Legacy, trying to keep the story alive. And together, they actually found something really interesting. So, they already know about Brown Mountain, but they found similar legends about Black Mountain. Legends about strange lights in the sky. People would hear the mountain humming. And there were even a few disappearances over the years.
Oh.
And you want to know the freakiest part? It's right next to the original sighting in Sutton.
Okay. So is there supposed to be like that all like 4 of these locations are connected?
They are. Via the Mammoth Cave Network. The Mammoth Cave Network is the largest cave system in the world with 400 miles of charted caverns. There's more. We haven't charted all of it. We haven't charted, I think, most of it. But we've already charted 400 miles worth of caverns.
So, Brown Mountain, Black Mountain, the Sutton, like, estate, and then David's place with the mining caves and stuff, it's connected to this cave system, too?
We don't know for sure, because most of those mines are shut down. But
it wouldn't be that far off, basically.
And Black Mountain is a few miles from the original sighting place. So people think that might have something to do with it.
Okay.
Now...
So the grand scheme of things, like if these are aliens, like they are basically just chilling in these caves.
Now, no one brought up this point, but it popped into my head. Some of you may have seen this on Facebook if you are in paranormal circles, but it's a very freaky thing, once you point out, is you sent it to me before, Jake, the map of cave systems across the U.S. overlaid with missing 411 disappearances.
I've seen that, yeah.
And they're mostly along cave systems.
Wait, I sent you this?
Yeah.
I'm freaking out.
And a lot of those disappearances are in entrances to Mammoth Cave. Now,
so are you basically saying that these aliens are taking people?
Possibly. Or there's something hanging out in the caves.
They're at least taking dogs.
Yeah, honestly,
remember,
to me that's really upsetting.
Black Mountain has the disappearances. And in one case, there's actually someone who claimed to have found an alien's body. But when the guy died, the museum he kept it in, the small town roadside museum he kept it in, burned down. And the alien corpse he had went missing.
Okay.
To make matters worse, is remember how I mentioned the military police arrived to the original sighting?
Yeah.
Well, the daughter of Lucky was supposedly visited by a man whose father was in that Air Force base nearby. And as part of his deathbed confession, he told his son that he was sent there that night to recover a destroyed craft on the property, which might have been why they were there for so long, and why there were so many military police with them.
Also, kind of
keep the cops corralled to one area.
Yeah, I was about to say.
While the Air Force gathers their stuff.
Yeah.
So it's all coming together, man.
So, Will, if they're talking about this like aircraft, though, like, is it understood that this is not an alien aircraft, or it is an alien aircraft?
According to the deathbed confession, I think it was extraterrestrial. Now,
that's pretty fucking wild. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not kidding about this being like a freaking roller coaster ride. Holy shit.
Newkirk actually went to Heller, Kentucky to find Chrissy, but he couldn't. He found his house abandoned for fruit. It had been abandoned for 3 years. Well, they believe it is his house, but they actually found no proof that a man named David Christie lived in Heller. But of course, it might have been a fake name.
Yeah.
Especially with how he wanted to be anonymous.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, this brings us to the final portion, and this is some independent research I did. Because I was looking for any references in folklore that might line up with what they're seeing, and I found something. The moon-eyed people of Cherokee myth. According to the Cherokee, there is an ancient race of people that lived in the Appalachian Mountains, described as having large eyes, white skin, and being very short. They are noted as being nocturnal, living in caves, and only emerging at night. Supposedly, the Cherokee wanted to get rid of them. They had a war with them, and waited for them outside their cave for them to emerge, and ambushed, killing all of them. Or in some stories, they didn't kill all of them, but enough to drive them north, out of Cherokee territory, into Kentucky. Now,
I will say this real quick. Because of this cave system that they supposedly live in, I mean, it wouldn't be that far-fetched that, like, the Cherokee might have thought they killed them all, but a lot of them were able to escape.
Yeah, I mean, how you gonna live?
no, you're not going down there to clear it out.
As far as they know, there's 400 miles, which is even more fucking more.
Yeah, and you know, this is before that you knew, so
Yeah.
I mean, it's very likely that they escaped.
Yeah. Now, the thing to note is that the moon-eyed people aren't some fringe theory. They're actually memorialized in a national park plaque. Fort Mountain Park has a plaque mentioning them because they supposedly built the structure the park is built around. A 850-foot stone wall dating to 400 CE or AD.
Wait, 850 feet long, right?
Yes.
It's not like a fucking tower.
No, it's not massive.
Okay.
It's 850 feet stone, built in 400 AD.
Okay.
And it is said that this Cherokee rumored moon-eyed people
Built it. Before that, they were there before the Cherokee were.
Okay.
That's the big legend. Now, there's actually a theory around these people called the Lost Welsh theory.
You just had to tell me these are just rogue Welsh people?
Yes, that was actually a claim for a while. A lot of early American scholars genuinely believed that what the moon-eyed people were was a colony that came here from Wales back in the medieval times, led by a Prince Madoc, but supposedly disappeared along with 20 other ships. Disappeared and just settled in the forest, isolated from everyone else. But people kind of debate if that's true or not, because the Welsh theory was used by England to make the claims that they found the New World before anyone else did.
Oh.
But it was very heavily believed, to the point that Thomas Jefferson actually gave secret orders to Lewis and Clark that on their expedition they were supposed to look for proof of the, quote, Welsh Indians. So he firmly believed in this. He just didn't think it was aliens.
Yeah.
And they actually have a statue of the Moon-Eyed people that is in the Cherokee County Historical Museum. And I'm about to show a picture of it to you all. And again, I'll put it on the Twitter. And you can see how it kind of looks like it.
Those are some Welsh people right there. I've been to Wales. I know what they look like.
Yeah. According to the legend, Prince Madoc was supposed to have landed in Mobile Bay, Alabama in 1170, but disappeared into the forest with his followers. So that's what they think the Moon-Eyed People were, but that doesn't really match up with the timeline presented by the folklore and the structures.
So, more than likely, that was just said to try to stake some claim over the New World.
America.
Yeah. And then, if we kind of disregard that portion, we still have, like, the basis that the Moon-Eyed People were real.
Yes. So, that's actually the last thing I have. So, I guess we have to get to the conclusion.
Well, here, just real quick before we get to the conclusion, because my brain is, like, all over the place.
Fried.
Yeah, that was a lot of information at once, and it was also just, like non-stop crazies. So, we never figure out who terrorist is.
Nope.
But it's strange, it sounds like terrorist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
David was never heard from again.
He's gone. Gone with the wind.
No one knows what happened to
He may have
him.
never been real.
Possibly.
Yeah.
And then you have Greg, who really wasn't active in this stuff, got pulled into it with David. David blips off the face of the planet, and now Greg was looking around for more information on these aliens.
While getting mysterious emails from terrorist.
Yeah, like creepy ass emails.
So it all depends on if Newkirk is lying.
Yeah.
I seriously doubt he is. If he's got, like, the receipts for the emails, if he's got, like, different, like, you know, information and stuff.
And if he did confirm it with the police, that they did receive calls similar to what David was describing.
Yeah. And then you have the Sutton family. And, oh my god. So...
But the Moon-Eyed People was not part of his article. That's something I found that kind of complements what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think it matches up really good. So if you really, like, think about this in some way, these are extraterrestrials that have been here for forever, and the little crash landing that happened on the Sutton farm was probably more just showing up to continue living in these giant network of caves.
Or it may have been unrelated.
I think, that's what I think. I don't think that they're aliens.
They might have just been here.
Well, there's no reason. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason because we know that there are other hominids. I mean, monkeys are technically hominids along with us, and that we're Neanderthals. There's no reason some other smaller race could have evolved, and.
But it just matches up with both the Sutton story and the David story. Is like, I guess what I mean, because it's the nocturnal, live in caves of some kind, and like. I don't, like,
so,
that's fucking weird to me.
Either the person sending him emails is fucking with him. No, that doesn't even work because he knows his movements. He knew Newkirk went to Brown Mountain. He knew about Heller. So, I don't know.
It could always be some creep.
But then, how is he privy to that information?
Who knows?
So... This is all
and the pictures and the footprints and like.
Well, the footprints are good. The pictures are a little
bad.
Yeah, because it looks like it could have just been a dude on a 4-wheeler wearing his helmet.
But to be fair, if that in that kind of situation, who wouldn't be shaking?
Yeah,
that's always my point too. And plus, it's at night, and he's probably shooting with some kind of like old ass camera.
And they glow.
Yeah.
And it was a glow. That was not, oh, my flash is on, because that lighting looks different. Hi, photo major. Like, the lighting looks different whenever you use flash. It doesn't matter how old the camera is. So these things were, like, glowing.
Yeah.
Straight up.
So, this is a big thing, because I'm kind of nervous to say I believe it's true, because then...
But like,
I don't know if I want to believe in the third order as well, right?
Yeah, I get that. But I guess what my point is, like, what are we trying to believe here? Like, are these aliens, or are they, like...
Let's break it up into pieces.
Yeah, I think the first things first is just, in general, are they real?
Well, no, let's break it up even further. Do we think the first sighting is real or not?
I would probably say yes. Mostly because... they fired a lot of ammunition, and even, like, in that year, ammunition is not the cheapest thing ever.
Yeah.
2, they have a family of like 4 or 5 adults and then 7
Children.
kids. And I don't think the kids are only like 2. I think they are older. Like, and you're like, you got your preteens, you got your like single digit age. They can get terrified of things easily, but like that can back up the story just as good as the adults can. If you have that many people that see the same thing.
Yeah.
So, and they went to the police. And the police took it so seriously that they had the fucking Air Force with them. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm going to say, I think what happened was real. I just don't know what it was.
Yeah. Well, do you believe it was anomalous? Meaning that, like, something out of the ordinary happened here. Not necessarily aliens. It could be a number of things, but it wasn't a hoax or a misidentification. That something weird happened in Hopkinsville. Do you believe that?
I believe that.
Okay.
JP?
Oh, yes. I think the crash and the creatures are not related, though.
Well, we never even heard of a crash.
It might even be a crash. I mean, it could just be a star. And then,
he never said it was a crash. He just said he saw it.
Yeah. Well, but one of the, whatever the heck.
Air Force?
Their dying wish, their son said they were there to investigate a crash.
Well, that's also iffy.
Well, also, at that time, I mean, 1950s, we had a lot of experimental aircrafts that maybe just crashed. And maybe it woke these things up.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
And that's why
they could have been in some long hibernation. I mean, they're
they would hear the seismic quakes would be worse for them downstairs, and it would make sense for them to come up to investigate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which could be why they're so curious.
Yeah, because again, like I feel like that's the point. They were curious because they came up and they were like, "What the fuck was that?"
They weren't attacking.
No.
They were.
Well, we don't know for sure.
Well, they were tapping on the glass and they were like
peering in the windows and
stuff.
And
and
just
they
being
saw
weird.
They saw the kid, which I don't know how intelligent these things are, but if they look in the window and see something generally their size in the dark, they might be like, "Holy fuck, they got one of those."
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand why they would be afraid, especially now that we know these mountains have a lot of disappearances around them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now break it up to like the next part.
All right.
David.
Do we believe David's story?
I don't know. A lot of detail, and he seems kind of crazy. And
but
he's also
we have
real.
the police confirmation in the photos.
True, but...
And those, like, and that, my point again about those emails. Like, they didn't start necessarily full of detail. Like, and when he went through that whole account of when this shit started for him and then where he ended up at that point, that he was emailing Greg, it started off not super detailed. It was, like, basic, like, hey, this is what I remember happening.
Yeah, the first email wasn't, but the second email was.
No, but I'm talking in that email, like in that beginning, right in that email. It started when he was talking about when this all began. He was basically like, "This is what I remember," but I wasn't keeping close track of stuff happening because I was contacting the police. But when the police didn't do anything for him, that's when his details were like grew exponentially because I think he was trying to record as much information as possible because no one was believing him.
Yeah.
Now, here's what I would say about that. The only time he has a great amount of detail is when he personally sees them. And that's after these things have been bugging them for a period of time. So he probably saw it and already knew, okay, I need to write this down now while it's fresh in my memory.
That's true. But also, Greg confirmed there's a police report.
Yes.
By David.
Matt seen the description. They couldn't put the name on it.
They weren't allowed to.
Due to privacy.
Okay.
But like, just specifying, like, there was no record of a David living there either. But so this could easily have been an anonymous person.
But it was abandoned. Wasn't the house abandoned for like 3 years?
Yeah, but this was years afterward.
Oh, this wasn't just like the next year?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was some time before he went to Heller.
Okay.
And that I would also like to point out, too.
The fact that it was abandoned for 3 years actually lines up with the timeline.
That's what I was going to say. It lines up with what he said.
When did he go to Heller?
Roughly after Terry Riss emailed him, a year after Christie's last email. Even then, Christie was a few months between, I think. So it's roughly around 3 years. Between his visit to Heller and the first email from David.
The first email was in 2012.
Yes.
And then Terry Riss happened in 2013, correct?
Yes. And I think he went in 2015. Yes, he visited in 2015 because he made a YouTube series out of it. So we visited in 2015.
Okay.
So it makes sense for the house to look abandoned then. Now,
that meant he wrote an email and left, like, immediately.
Well, he did say he was staying with his wife's family.
Okay.
And that he was leaving 2 days after the last email.
Okay.
And it makes sense why he wouldn't go into the cave, because one, that shit's scary.
Oh, I fucking wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Especially, like, when you start seeing, like, your belongings that were, like, in front of your property end up at the entrance of this fucking mine shaft thing. One, it's abandoned, so it's not safe. Two, that would be proof enough that something's in there.
Yeah.
And, you know, wouldn't want to come face to face with it. No thanks. It's fucking dark in that shit.
If it took your dog with no fear in its heart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do think there's a chance that David's just crazy.
I don't know. Because it doesn't.
Footprints.
And it doesn't seem like the ramblings of a crazy man. Like the way he's talking. Like it just sounds like someone who was forced to become a scientist real quick and record all this information.
Because I think they looked into what they could about him, and he was a doctor when he retired.
Like a doctor, or like a doctorate?
No, I think he was a medical doctor. But I have to double check my notes.
That explains
so
just the educated, like,
speaking out my
writings.
anus.
But that would explain how, like, his educated writings.
So, do we think David's... Well, one thing to point out with the footprints, though, is that they have, according to Newkirk, because he had the photos analyzed, you can actually see dermal prints, which are the little rings on your hands and feet, which are very hard to fake.
Yeah.
They're how you grip. So, this is either something done by a master forger, or they're legitimate.
Then I'm gonna go with legitimate, because the likelihood of this person being able to make up a forgery that well, but, like, if you're gonna forge something like that, wouldn't you want, like, your real name attached to it? Wouldn't you want the person that you're in contact with to, like, you know, show up physically on your property?
Or something to profit from it.
Yeah, like something. Like, he's, like, anonymous, sending emails. And I don't even think he probably knew that Greg was going to be publishing this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that wouldn't have been my first thought. So, the only thing that's sketchy with David, in my opinion, is the fact that he just dropped off the face of the planet. No one knows where the fuck he is or who he is. And the other thing, too, is those photos of, like, the so-called, like, little people that he was seeing. They're a little weird to me. Mm-hmm. But, because when I looked at those photos, the first one is, like, really, really bright and detailed, and the second one's really, like, gritty from just, like, the lighting and probably the focus on his camera. But, like, if you look at them, like, side by side, I mean, it looks like almost like the same creature, but just one has more detail. But like you said, it looks like he's wearing a helmet, so that's kind of confusing in itself.
It looks like somebody riding forward.
Yeah. But we have to give him some slack in that we already know these things are pretty acrobatic.
Yeah.
And he's chasing them down in the woods, which, if this is all real, if all this is real, kudos to David for putting the work in.
Yeah, I was about to say, he did a fuck ton of work for that.
And chasing after these things after they killed his dog.
I mean, I still think, even if he wasn't crazy when he started, I think he was a little warped in the mind by the end of it.
Which is understandable.
I was about to say, this guy's probably, like, having some fucking PTSD shit.
Well, that's probably why he just dropped off like that. Because he's like, the police don't believe me. I'm scared. And this asshole I'm emailing refuses to come down here and help me blow up this mine. So, you know what?
But
I wash my hands of this.
Well, yeah. Like, get the fuck away. And it worked out in his favor. But, like, the other thing is, too, he could not have just expected Greg to be able to do this stuff for him.
Did Greg ever check with the neighbors?
He didn't have neighbors. It's a rural community, so he said that the nearest neighbors you could go days without seeing.
Yeah, didn't he say he had asked his neighbors for help and friends?
Yeah, and they're all like, "No,
like,
I'm not going in there."
But he never asked. He never went to the neighbors and was like, "Hey, did you ever talk to a guy?"
Oh well, he couldn't find his neighbors because
he didn't
go under the actual name David Christie.
Yeah, and not to mention, he showed up on that property, but, like, the downside of it was just that they couldn't necessarily confirm that was David's house.
Yeah.
It wasn't, like, 100%. It lined up with, like, the time period, and based on, like, descriptions and stuff, it could possibly be it, but they couldn't 100% confirm it because Again, David Christie doesn't fucking exist.
Plus, as he pointed out, he didn't tell anyone what he was seeing because he was scared for his family's reputation.
Yeah, so...
And it's far enough that they wouldn't be able to see it.
Yeah. He's like, I came here for some peace and goddamn quiet and I didn't get anything.
Well, I'm just saying, I think it's pretty easy to go around a neighborhood and be like, hey, has a guy ever asked you to go in a mine with him? Because he said he asked people to do that.
He asked his friends, his sympathetic friends.
Yeah, like...
They have to be in a community.
Oh.
Not necessarily.
It could be people like very close to him, maybe like former colleagues, if he is a doctor, or his
like
in-laws,
family
like
members.
his brother-in-law.
Wait, so who noted that he was a doctor?
I can't find. I just remember reading that somewhere. But so I will put out. I could be wrong that he was a doctor.
I was gonna say because you can find people's doctorates,
but
you
we
can
don't
look
have
up
a name.
doctors.
But again, you don't have the name because David Christie is not his real name. He's being anonymous.
But I see what you mean.
You could just
unless
dig
he's
through it.
Retired.
It could be, but still.
Yeah, in which
The
case he wouldn't be
likelihood, the amount of
advertising.
people who have like doctorate degrees in general, or the amount of people that have like
In
who
a rural area.
you'd be surprised.
I mean, like,
And the amount that probably moved away, but and then, like that would be so many different degrees to filter through, and so many different people to background check to figure out.
I feel like in a rural area, you could check things fairly quickly.
well, the fact is, it was confirmed by the police that this happened. That reports were filed, at least.
So we did not report to file. A real person does exist and does believe in this.
Yeah. So
Yes.
so either someone experienced it, or again, Newkirk is lying, but he's pretty respected in the paranormal community.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I think he could have dug a little harder in the town itself.
But I also feel like after David stopped emailing him, I feel like part of him was kind of like, I might wash my hands of this too, because I really don't know what to do with this information, because this is not my expertise. And
Especially
then
after Terry
Well,
Riss.
I was going to say, then Terry Riss emails him.
I mean, I get that.
And
but
then at that point, he's like petrified to do anything else.
I get that, but if you're in the town, like, just ask some fucking questions.
He did ask around, but no one could help him identify it, so he just had to go off of guesswork. Now, I do think he confirmed there was a mine on the property, though.
Oh.
Yeah, which I'm sure is true.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that's
But there's
probably
also a lot of mines.
Yeah, that's probably not too hard to find.
So, how do we feel about David's story before we move on to the other chapters?
I believe a person had a really crazy experience in that town.
I do too, but I do believe that they may have been driven a little crazy.
Yeah.
And I just think the footprints are a very interesting piece of like evidence.
The footprints they're very real if they have the dermal prints and the three toes and how many heels.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, I mean, that's how human feet should be, because we should have like, what are they called? What kind of legs are they called? We have double joints, you have two knees. That's how you're supposed to stand if you're on two legs.
Oh, okay. Like what horses do? Or go? Or it bends?
Yeah.
Okay. We're rambling right now,
We're like a
audience,
like
and
a
I
praying
apologize.
mantis.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, how they have double jointed knees.
Okay.
Yeah.
They can
double
bend
knees.
both ways?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what do you think? Do you think something? Yes or no? Or undecided?
In general, that something happened?
Yeah.
100%
David.
something happened. Oh,
Okay.
With David?
Yeah.
I think David just... someone exists.
Yeah.
This did happen. Something happened to.
Do you believe it's anomalous, where something paranormal, not necessarily aliens, but something out of the normal happened to him, or it's a hoax and or misidentification?
I do not think it's a hoax, and I do not think it's misidentification.
I don't think it's a hoax. It could be misidentification. It could be a bear.
But then we have to explain the
my
footprints.
God.
No, it's not a bear. I think that more than likely something paranormal did happen. I don't think it's aliens.
Valid.
If it's anything, it is some other type of hominid.
Okay, yeah. I mean, realistically, we're only seeing alien stuff because we're choosing to, and because of Terry.
Yeah. Well, not even because of Terry, really. I mean, Terry's part of it, but really it's because of, not Lucky, but the other one. His brother, Billy Ray.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he saw something like this guy.
Now, I'm yes to both of these. Here comes the third and final and hardest part. From Terry Wrist on. do we believe?
I don't know what the fuck is.
I don't know what to say about terrorists
Because it's so much like getting anonymous letters from a schizophrenic, but on the same time, he knows things he shouldn't be able to.
Whoever he is, he's a fucking crazy.
He's fucking creepy. Like, I mean, he's basically stalking this guy, and he is the one that recommended David to even talk to Greg. And
Supposedly.
Which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because Greg is like, I have no idea who the fuck you are.
Unless he just wanted an audience. Someone with a newspaper that's relatively popular in this field.
Could be. I think terrorist is a fucking crazy person. Well, think about it. His name is terrorist.
But on the same side, this really lines up with the patterns used with Andrew Cold. At least reported from John Keel. Where Andrew Cold just knows things that he has no way of knowing and will anonymously reach out to people. John Keel said he got phone calls from him. But here it's emails now. But I'm leaning towards maybe there's something to terrorist, but it's also a tough pill to swallow with the ink in the black and Third Order.
And the window references and the numbers and just
I think terrorist is just, I think he's a crazy person. I think he knows a lot.
But how would he know it was in Heller? And how would he know that Newkirk went to Brown Mountain?
Stalkers are crazy, dude.
Yeah, I honestly feel like he's a stalker.
The internet's an easily accessible place.
But Newkirk never made any mention that he was on Brown Mountain. He was only up there with 2 other people.
One of them said something.
Yeah. No, one of them is a very trusted friend, and they kept it very quiet. And the other one is his either girlfriend or wife. Yes, wife.
You never know. You could mention something to do with a friend, just in passing. Like, hey, we were in Brown Mountain. Somebody asked where you were. I was in Brown Mountain. Or
it's terrorist is a fraud.
The internet's well, he knows where he was. The internet's an easily accessible place. You have a phone on you at all times that has fucking Google Maps. Even in 2015, 2013. Yeah.
But I don't know. So weird.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah. It makes me uncomfortable because I just feel like this is like a stalking scenario, but like a weird scenario where Terry Riss made it his sole purpose to drag Greg into this shit.
I don't think Greg was like. I think it could have been anybody with an audience, like Harmon said.
Who wanted an audience. Yeah. But here's the thing. I feel like the door is closed is referring to the mine shafts. Because Brown Mountain, it was sealed, and that's what David was going to do before he left.
Yeah.
So maybe it's referring to that, but then I don't know what window means, unless they mean either another entrance or some kind of weird, they can still spy on us.
Could be.
Yeah. This is spooky. This is a spooky story.
God.
But
the spooky thing isn't even the creatures. I think the creatures is just some weird evolution. The creepiest part is terrorist.
Yeah, I will say, I believe that terrorist is real. I don't think he's anomalous so much as he is tied to anomalies. He kind of like a Men in Black type deal. That he's either someone who is in close connection to things like aliens and extraterrestrials, or he's a hush man from the government. But even then, that doesn't really make sense. Because he's publicizing it. I can't make heads or tails of terrorists, man.
Yeah, the Terry thing is what throws me, I think, for this entire thing.
So we're just going with collective undecided
for him.
Yeah.
He's a crazy person.
Right. And overall, how are we feeling about this case? I've closed my notebook.
This was wild, start to finish. It was like a lot of loops and a lot of just like crazy shit and so many different connections and so many different like facts and details and evidence and just.
And now you see why I didn't want to bring up aliens so early in the podcast.
Yeah, because
I don't even think they're aliens. Like that's my thing. I don't think they're aliens.
Yeah, I'm just saying this is. As soon as you say aliens, it opens up
a rabbit hole
that just keeps going.
Yeah, man. I don't think they're aliens. I think they exist. I think they are an abnormal thing, but I just think they're creatures.
My thing. I don't know about the alien part, but I definitely think that like we already said, like something fucking weird happened in all of these scenarios through this whole thing.
Even the physiology matches up with something that would live in a cave. Gray skin because no sunlight.
Dark eyes.
Dark eyes.
They're probably blind.
Yeah, or it's meant to absorb as much light as it can, which might be why they're apparently bioluminescent.
Yeah.
But also, and like it would explain the chirping as well, because like if these are some kind of like creature, I mean that would make sense. Yeah, echo like location basically. That's what different rats do with their whiskers. That's what like what is.
That's what bats do.
Yeah, that's too.
Yeah.
Well, and then what is it like naked mole rats? They live in fucking dark places.
Yeah.
These things are just like large naked mole rats.
So, regardless of what they are, if they're aliens or cave creatures, do we believe in the Kentucky Goblins?
I think they exist.
Yeah.
But they are not aliens.
Yes.
Yes. We got it all, yes, people! Yeah! I did it! I beat the rock apes! Well, this has been the Cryptid Code. Stay spooky out there.
That was almost an hour and a half.